Rolls Royce, the luxury car brand that sells around 20 million cars each year. But it doesn't just sell cars, it sells a lifestyle, a status, and a vehicle synonymous with luxury, elegance, and style. That's why you will see many renowned celebrities including Beyoncé, Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, Justin Bieber, Kylie Jenner, or K-pop king G-Dragon all own one or more Rolls Royce. While many people are crazy about having one of these cars with the Spirit of Ecstasy above its hood, almost no one knows that the Spirit of Ecstasy carries with it a story about a secret passion between Walter Edward Douglas-Scott-Montagu and the model for the Emblem, Eleanor Thorton. In today's video, I'm going to uncover that dark secret behind Rolls Royce, and most specifically behind its emblem, the Spirit of Ecstasy. So, stay with me till the end to know about that secret that had been hidden for almost a century. While the Silver Lady is now considered a symbol of luxury and elegance, it also commemorates a dark and secret love of the early 1900s. At first, it was a statue of a young woman in fluttering robes with a forefinger to her lips, which was called the Whisper. The Whisper indicates the secret love story. But then something unexpected happened, and the tragedy leads one of the lovers to drown deep in the ocean. This is not Titanic, although it was only 3 years apart, but truly a sad and romantic story. In her memory, the emblem was designed to depict the Spirit of Ecstasy. Although the love affair began after many years, let me start from how they met. Well, the story begins in 1902 with Walter Edward Douglas-Scott-Montagu, 2nd Baron Montagu of Beaulieu, a motoring enthusiast and freelance writer who, despite his noble title, was sometimes short of money. Montagu hired Charles Sykes to be the primary illustrator for the magazine he founded, The Car Illustrated. This magazine was the first of its kind in Britain. Around the same time, Claude Johnson, a friend of Montagu's who worked as a general secretary at the Automobile Club, hired young Eleanor Thorton to be his assistant. Eleanor was very smart and very beautiful, and when I say beautiful, she was exceptional. But she also hid something else. She had a secret second life. During the day, she worked as Johnson's assistant at the Automobile Club, where she was quiet, polite, and professional. At night, she was a sensual, exotic dancer and life model. Charles Sykes was one of several painters with whom she posed on a regular basis. It wasn't long until Montagu too had the opportunity to meet Eleanor, and he immediately fell in love with her. He made the offer that she might work as the office manager for his magazine. The attraction that they felt for one another from the very beginning was to mark the beginning of a love affair that would endure for 13 years. I fell in love with her at first sight, Montagu said years after. Eleanor was a lovely, elegant, very loyal, and brilliant young girl. She also had outstanding good looks. Despite the fact that she was 14 years younger than Walter and came from a family of modest means in South London, she quickly began an affair with him. Eleanor fell pregnant in 1903. The newborn baby girl was named Joanne Eleanor Thornton. Well, you guys must be thinking, why didn't they keep the baby if Walter was prominent enough to cover all the expenses? Well, if you ask me, there was another problem. Practically speaking, the same notion exists till the day that in order to avoid causing a scandal, a high society couple who had a love kid kept their connection a secret from everyone else in their lives, other than a small group of close relatives and friends. Eleanor knew that, as a single mother, she would be unable to continue working for Montagu. Therefore, she made the difficult decision to place her daughter for adoption shortly after Joanne Eleanor Thornton was born. When it came to the illustrator Sykes, he was not only skilled as a sculptor, but had also attended the Royal College of Art and studied under the renowned professor Edward Lanterry. In 1903, he sculpted a trophy for Montagu to deliver in the Gordon Bennett race that was based on Eleanor. Around that same period, Sykes was also responsible for the creation of a mascot for Montagu's Rolls Royce Silver Ghost. It was a little sculpture made of aluminium and had been given the name the Whisper. It depicted a young lady in billowing robes with a fingertip to her lips. Many think it suggests she is concealing a secret and the forbidden love that lies behind it. It is known that Eleanor was the model. However, it is unknown if the mascot was created as a sign of gratitude from Sykes to Montagu, or whether Eleanor constructed it at her own initiative as a present for her beloved. Nonetheless, Montagu affixed it to each and every Rolls-Royce vehicle he purchased up to the year 1929, which some believe was a covert acknowledgement of his love for Eleanor. It is often believed that the Whisper was the source of inspiration for the Spirit of Ecstasy, and that Eleanor Thornton served as the model for the Rolls-Royce mascot as a result of this. On the other hand, this is not always the case. It was the year 1910 that Claude Johnson, by this time the managing director of Rolls-Royce, made his reappearance in the story. Henry Royce's objection to Rolls-Royce customers affixing their own mascots to their vehicles was the reason behind Johnson's suggestion that the business develop its own emblem. Once Royce reluctantly gave his approval, Johnson gave Charles Sykes a job of designing it. At that time, an iconic event in automotive history took place when John presented Charles Sykes to Claude Johnson, the managing director of Rolls-Royce Limited. Sykes was given the task of creating a suitable emblem, which he chose to call the Spirit of Ecstasy. Johnson recommended something like the Greek marble statue of Nike of Samothrace, often known as the Goddess of Victory, which was carved in 190 BC and has been on display in the Palais du Louvre in Paris since 1883. Sykes went to pay his respects at the statue, but he had the inspiration that a figure that was less forceful and more delicate would be more fitting. So instead of that, Thornton posed for the sculptor Sykes, and the mascot depicts her arms spread behind and above her as she leans forward. The love affair she had with John was genuinely the inspiration for the mascot that has since been used as the bonnet or hood ornament on all vehicles built by Rolls-Royce. The bonnet decoration that Charles and John designed for their Rolls-Royce was so well received by Rolls-Royce that it was eventually adopted as the company's standard for all future models. The phrase "Spirit of Ecstasy" came to be associated with creative excellence, elegance, and grandeur. Yet Eleanor was not to experience such happiness for very long before a tragic incident occurred. On December 30th, 1915, Eleanor Thornton passed away at the age of 35. So, what had happened? During that time, the dark, foreboding storm clouds of World War I had engulfed Europe. In 1915, after John, 2nd Baron Montagu, had already spent some time in India, it was arranged for him to return to that country and take up his post as Inspector of Mechanical Transport. Eleanor was about to go with him all the way to Port Said, Egypt, and then continue on alone for the rest of the tour. The pair left Marseille on Christmas Day 1915 on the ship SS Persia, which belonged to the P&O Steam Navigation Company. While Eleanor and John were eating lunch at a table on December 30th, 1915, a German U-boat under the command of Max Valentina launched a torpedo at the ship off the coast of Cape Martello, Crete. The torpedo struck the ship's hull and caused it to sink. The situation became much more devastating as a result of the explosion of one of the ship's boilers, which caused a second big blast to follow the first one. When I think about that situation, it reminds me of Titanic, as what is depicted in Titanic, the same happened here. So in all that rush and confusion, Montagu and Eleanor made their way back to the decks, which was already starting to break apart as the ship started to tip to one side. When the ship began to list, frigid seawater surged in through the gaping portholes. They debated whether or not they should attempt to locate a lifeboat, but there was no more time when suddenly a wall of water surrounded them. Montagu was holding Eleanor in his arms, but next she was gone. Within minutes, the port side of the ship was submerged, and Montagu was pulled down with it. Shortly, the ship went down, and Eleanor perished in the water along with more than 300 other passengers. Only John Montagu managed to survive. 3 days later, after being stranded at sea without food or water and suffering from extreme exposure in a poorly broken lifeboat with just a small number of other passengers, they were rescued by a steamship named Ningchao. "I should have got a stronger grip on her," wrote Lord Montagu in a letter home from his sickbed in Malta in 1916 after being rescued. You can definitely feel the regret and despair from him. Even though the love affair between the nobleman and Eleanor Thornton came to an end when she passed away, their commitment to one another is commemorated in the most unexpected of places, on each and every Rolls-Royce. So, the next time you see a Rolls-Royce with the Spirit of Ecstasy emblem, remember the forbidden love story behind it, and how the emblem was inspired and made. Even the most luxurious and prestigious brands have a hidden story behind them. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe and come back for other videos.